Don Edwards, we're tickled to have you here again, and we'll see you again tonight. It's performed often here at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, but it's a special privilege today. We're going to be with him to help him celebrate bringing on the Chester A. Reynolds Memorial Award at the museum for his contributions to all of us and to sharing your music and to your interest in Western music through the years. And he's not done yet. We had a fun conversation over lunch. This doesn't mean it's going to end. We're just recognizing what he's done so far.
As far as guitars, you know, especially a lot of the cowboy music I play, cowboy as opposed to Western music came out of the movies and more of the like Sons of the Pioneers and Roy Rogers and the Western music was more the romantic side of cowboy music. Cowboy music was about death and dying and getting, you know, stampedes and water crossings and, you know, and all that kind of thing. The cowboy music was pretty much a real thing, like it really happened. And most of those guys weren't singers and they didn't play instruments for the most part. They might have carried a mouth harp with them in their vest pocket or something. And a guitar in those days was generally in town, of course, in a parlor, because they called them parlor guitars, small-bodied guitars, which I'm very fond of. And they were the guitars cowboys played in those days were what they were from the bunkhouse culture. You know, when they were around the ranch. You know, they didn't take them on cattle drives. No. Okay. No, they were about as you know, the opposite end of art as you can possibly get, you know, without really having any really artistic embellishment, so to speak, until, you know, some of the fancy, like Martin, you know, used a lot of abalone and things like that, and they made their style 45 out of that, and that's about as fancy as they got, you know. But it was, like Don had just said, it was, the guitar itself was synonymous with the singing cowboys, and that was it. I mean, the radio made it famous. You know, it wasn't a famous instrument, and one other thing I'd say about the cowboy music per se, was the cowboy, there was no stars in cowboy music. No big stars. There was a hit record, but there was no stars. Like Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, and there wasn't any of that. It wasn't a household name, but a man by the name of Carl T. Sprague recorded a song called When the Work's All Done This Fall. It was originally a poem called After the Roundup by D.J. O'Malley, a Montana cowboy. And his favorite artist was not a musician either. was classically trained in his voice, but was Vernon Dalhart. And Vernon was a huge star. And Carl Sprague was a cowboy in South Texas on a ranch. And he heard the record, of course, being, you know, the Prisoner song, you know, and all these big giant hits that Vernon Dalhart made, and he said, I can do that. So he decides he's going to go to New York City and make a recording session. He just walked right in there, right into RCA Victor, says, I'm here to make a record. And they said, you're crazy. You know, you can't do that. And he was so nice, he talked him into it. He recorded 29 sides for RCA Victor. And he went home, down to College Station, Texas, where he became a professor at Texas A&M. And he never pursued a professional career. He played for house parties, and that was the end of it. He had a #1 record, showed it what would have been a #1 record. 1925, he recorded that song, The Work's All Done This Fall. It sold over 900,000 records. It was a near million-selling record of a pure, unadulterated cowboy song. And no frills, no fancy. He played an old a metal body guitar is what it was.
Resonator guitar.
Resonator. Yeah, exactly. That's what he played. And he went back home, and so there was never any stars as such. There was an early radio star, Jules Verne Allen, who was also a cowboy singer in those days. And basically what we're considered to be as cowboy folk singers, you know, rather than anything in the genre of country music or anything, but we're, you know, people like Elvis and people like that really popularized the instrument, you know. And you don't find much of that in country music anymore. You find it in bluegrass music and traditional music, and now folk music is pretty much gone. I mean, nobody sings any real folk music. It means the music of the folk. And the instruments, the guitar was, you know, a major part of all that. I mean, you had banjos, you had fiddles and all that. Well, you know, when you were talking about it's not about, how did you put it? You said it wasn't about, it was the art you would do, but what about you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you see, that's the difference of music, what they do now, and I mean, it's fine if that's what you want to be, but always, it was my music. It wasn't me, I was the messenger as well. Because the old saying that you may forget the singer, but don't forget the song. The song was the important thing to get across.
I've never heard that before. Yeah. I love that.
Well, that's what the whole thing was about. You know, it was about the singer, not the singer, but the song.
Well, with your tradition of cowboy music, it was the songs that went from camp to camp.
And it's not
the singer. They didn't care who sung it 2-3 camps ago. It was the song that was passed on. Exactly.
I mean, some people are, you know, just, you know, it's just what they are. You know, I mean, well, like, I don't know, the people are just interested in the monetary value of it, or whatever, and can, you know, afford a $100,000 guitar or something, you know, I mean, but to them it's just a prop, basically, you know, it's not really something that,
well, now,
you know, the guitar to me is like a prop.
They should call me for a chandelier if they've got $100,000 to drop on the guitar.
There you go, see, yeah. They call you, well, yeah, you can handle that. Paint them a guitar. You know, but the guitar itself, you know, is so much a part of it. If you take when it's about the song, the guitar is also the messenger. And in the old days, the guitar was 50-50%. It was. I went back to where I started 50 years ago, and I'm playing by myself. And everybody says, well, you know, you're too cheap to hire a band, you know. Well, I've been blessed. I mean, I've had as many as 12 pieces in the band at the same time and played some wonderful music and enjoyed it all my life. But I just went back to this, as rootsy as you can possibly go back into where the music was. And I got this out of there, and the closest kin to the cowboy music of the old days, and very guitar-driven. And a lot of this was even before recorded music, but into the early years of recorded music, was John Lomax, a great collector and historian, once mentioned the fact that American folk music, in American folk, not the European folk music or the British Isles or anything that came over from there, but true American created music, where John Lomax himself said that cowboy songs and the blues were the two most important finds in all of American folk music. And those are the two biggest things he collected. So he may have been a little bit biased on that side, but if you know, it all came from that. But the original part of that was very guitar-driven. I mean, now there were some fiddles and banjos and things like that, but the descriptions they give of them playing, they would point the strings and slide on the strings and hit the guitar with it, hands, you know, and things. And what it did was this drive. It was this spiritual thing that was in there, you know, and the guitar was half of the act. I mean, it wasn't about, look at me, here I am, this is just a prop. This was actually a part of the deal, you know, where so many people, they just use it basically just to strum on or, you know, to show up.
So cool.
The guitar itself was almost human.